like to welcome you all to Frankston City Libraries. Today we are talking about money matters, so making sure your cash stretches this Christmas. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Frankston City Libraries operates, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement to the elders of any other communities who may be joining us today. So I'd like to hand over now, which is great. I don't usually get to do that. So I might hand over to Lucy.
Okay. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us today. So my name's Lucy. I work with the Gamblers Help Southern program. We're based at an organisation called Connect Health and Community. And I'm joined today by my colleague Pam, who unfortunately we couldn't get the video working, but she can see us and we have her sound. So do you want to say hello, Pam?
Yeah, you can all run, but you can't hide.
There she is. Pam's one of the financial counsellors with our Gamblers Help Southern team. So you might be wondering, why is Gamblers Help Southern putting on a session around money matters in the lead up to Christmas? But the reason we want to do this, and Pam will talk more to this, as I said, Pam's one of our financial counsellors, and so she spends, all day, every day working with clients and talking with them about their personal finances and providing information about various services and payment assistance. So we just thought it was a great opportunity to share some of that information and a great time to share it in the lead up to Christmas, because we do know that Christmas can be a really expensive time often for people. So we thought we'd come along today and share some of that info. So the way we're going to run it, it'll be pretty informal. I'm just going to be really asking Pam a bunch of questions that hopefully are of interest and value. As we go along, if you had any questions or wanted to make any comments, feel free to pop them in the chat function and we'll keep an eye on that as we go. We'll also at the end, we've had time set aside as well, so we can always come back to any questions or comments that you might have then as we go. I'm also going to share some slides with you. So for some people, you might want to read some of the information and some of the content. At the same time, Pam will just be sharing her insights and knowledge with us. So I'll share that now. And just bear with me while I get it up and running. Okay, so hopefully you guys are all now seeing the first slide, which says money matters, how to stretch your cash this Christmas. So I think thumbs up. Somebody can show me that you can see that. That should be working. Fantastic. Okay. Now I just have to get all my screens working. Okay, so I'll just put up just a standard disclaimer. The information that we're presenting today is general information. It's not specific business or financial advice. So today we're going to run through a few different things, but looking to cover how and why it's a good idea to make a budget in general, but also a budget specifically for the festive season. We'll look at how unexpected costs, all those little costs, can add up and affect your plans and affect your budget. We'll look at some ideas around how you could cut costs to keep more of your cash. We'll also talk a little bit about various concessions or grants that you may be entitled to that can help with paying your bills. Okay, so as I said, we do know that heading into this Christmas period can be a really expensive time for lots of us. So that's going to be the focus of today's session. But as I said, a lot of the information applies. It's very general information that's applicable to anybody in any circumstance. So I might start actually, and this is where I'll bring Pam in. We really wanted to start, and my first question for Pam is, why is it important to make a budget? What are the benefits of doing that? And I'll share a slide, and as Pam can talk us through that.
So everybody has a budget. BHP has a budget. The government has a budget. You're no different whether you've got a lot of money or a little bit of money, as to you've still got to manage where that money goes and cover your outgoings. The only way to do that is have a good knowledge of what you're spending your money on. You've got to know what's important for you to spend your money on. And for most people, that starts with the roof over their head, the bills paid, the food on the table, and then everything else hangs off what's left over. And that's what's left over that creates a problem around Christmas, because at Christmas, for some reason, I don't quite know why, but we all get a little bit nutty. And I'm going to stick my hand up and say, you can't see me, I know, but I'm going to stick my hand up and say, yes, at Christmas I go a little bit nuts. And it tends to start about now when I start looking at who would like what. How do I make my family feel good about themselves at Christmas? And 9 times out of 10, we're trying to buy them something that they like. And it might be, yes, they would like the gold-plated Rolls-Royce Matchbox toy, but it's not really effective in the long run. So it's about you deciding how it works for you and your family deciding how it works for you. If that comes down to a Kris Kringle where everybody has a budget limit, everybody agrees not to go over the budget limit, and everybody sticks to that, then you're actually creating a level playing field for the whole family. And nobody's going to feel that they've been not appropriate in what they do. So let me know if that, doesn't make sense in the chat, and we'll look at how we can fit it all in for you. I've lost Lucy's sound.
Sorry, I have to remember to unmute myself. I just wanted to move into that question about how do people go about making a budget? And I put this slide up here about understanding your income, as I'm assuming that's sort of, is that the first place to start, knowing what's coming in?
Yeah, you've got to know where your money comes from. You've got to know, I've got a finite amount of money, I'm on Centrelink or I work for a wage. I know how much my rent or my mortgage costs. I know how much my electricity and gas costs, because I can call those providers and ask them each fortnight how much I would need to set aside for those. Or you can actually arrange to pay those fortnightly. So you can actually make an arrangement to have it come out as a direct credit from your bank account. And there are 2 ways of doing it. You can do it where they take the money, which is a direct debit, or you can do it where you set it up through your bank account and you're in charge and you use their BPay system and it becomes a direct credit. You can do that with basically everything that are a regular bill. You can do it with your rent, you can do it with your mortgage, you can do it with your rates if you have a mortgage, electricity, your gas, your phone, your internet, your insurances. All of those things can be done as a direct credit payment. It's about working out when your money comes in, and some self-funded retirees, their money comes in monthly, but the majority of people, their income comes in fortnightly. It's about putting that money away each fortnight so that you don't see it, so it protects the important things, the roof over your head, the light and the gas going, all of those things. And it's about your physical safety around those. So if you colour code things, as Lucy's put up, you've got the things that need to be paid regularly, either every week or every fortnight, and they don't change. You've got your things that can fluctuate, but particularly with petrol, it depends on what's going on in Singapore with the Singapore oil exchange. Petrol might be up or it might be down, but pretty much that you're going to be spending between, say, $60 and $120 a fortnight, depending on your car. And then there's the things that you like to spend money on. That might be going to the footy, go Tigers. That might be going to the pictures. It might be going down to, if you play bowls, you play a game like bowls or something like that, going down to the bowls. and what you spend there and the costs of your things to do that. But they're the things that if something goes wrong, you can call back on that. And I like another category that's not here. I like it like the rainy day fund. If something goes wrong, if you've got to pay, if you've got a pet and the dog's got to go to the vet, that comes out of your rainy day fund. It's about having those things, and that's where you put your Christmas money that goes into your rainy day fund.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. I've just put up, I guess that probably leads on to that next question around an incomplete budget. We probably all can sometimes have a tendency to remember things like the rent or phone bills, but I guess there's a lot of other little things that we need to remember to make sure the budget works. Is that right?
Yeah, and you've got to include, if you like a bottle of wine a week, if you don't put it down, the only person who's not seeing that in the budget is you, and the only person that's hurting is you. Now, if you smoke, you've got to put down the cost of your cigarettes. If you've got health insurance, that's got to go down as a regular cost. If you've got grandkids that you like to cook with when they come over, it's obviously going to be a lot more money spent on your food that day when you're cooking with your grandkids. So, but there's unexpected costs. If the clutch goes on the car or the automatic transmission, you need to have the money set aside that's in your rainy day fund that you can say, okay, I've got the money set aside in the rainy day fund to come out and fix the car. You're not looking at going, oh dear, where do I borrow this money from? Because those small borrowings, like from payday lenders and things, are seriously, seriously dangerous, and they can get you into all sorts of bother because it's expensive money. The interest rate on those things are about 35%, which is huge. It makes a credit card look cheap.
All right, so if somebody's wanting to make a budget specifically for the festive season, these kind of next 8 weeks, whatever we have left till Christmas, is there anything specific you'd want to cover off there?
Setting a spending limit. You might really think that your gold-plated Rolls Royce for your grandson is spectacular, but would he be just as happy with the one that's painted orange? It's you've got to look at what the person would be happy with and what they need. It's about needs, not wants. You might want to get them the gold-plated Rolls Royce Matchbox car, but it's going to get played with the same way by the same little boy or girl who would have played with the orange one. So it's about seeing the enjoyment from what you decide to do. And if the whole family, particularly with what we're going through now, if you've got youngsters or young families or young people on JobKeeper or JobSeeker, JobKeeper is going to fall back into the little hole of being just $546 a fortnight. That is not a lot of money for young people or even old people to live on. It's $40 a day is impossible. So as a family, you need to come together and say, no, we're going to do a Kris Kringle, and you could do everybody's skint because of COVID-19. Let's do it where everybody gives each other a gift that is of time. And it might be you say, I'll give you the time and I'll prune your roses. It might be a family member says, I'll come over and I'll straighten out your path for you. That time is seriously important. It gives you that personal engagement rather than that impersonal thing of you've gone out and bought something and hope for the best.
Mm. Yeah.
It's an emotional trade between people, that you do something for them and they do something for you. And you can establish that as a Kris Kringle.
Yeah.
I love Kris Kringles, as you might have gathered.
I do too. And I think you made the point about COVID and incomes with JobSeeker or JobKeeper. This sort of Christmas, holiday period, it's often a time, some people, their work increases, other people in different industries, the work might, go quiet over a period. But I guess it's such an uncertain time. So more than ever, it's probably really hard for a lot of people to exactly know what work will be there in January. So it's, more than ever, it's time to really think about that, I guess.
And the domino from Christmas into the start of the new year, there's new uniforms, because if you've got young kids, they do that horrendous thing of keep growing.
Yeah.
They just don't stop. And
That's right.
turn around, it's, oh dear, it's grown again.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you've got a couple of kids going to the same school, you can do hand-me-down clothes, but that very first kid that's going into the school, everything's got to be bought new.
Yeah.
Every
Lots of
single
costs. Yeah. So I've just put up, I guess, if somebody's, they've worked on their budget, put all the costs down, they understand what's coming in, what's going out. And then I guess you get to that point where you're looking at it and you want to say, well, where can I cut some costs back? What are the opportunities to free up a little bit of cash in this budget? So can you just talk us through, I guess, some of the ideas or thoughts that you'd have if somebody's wanted to find a little bit of extra money in the budget?
So if you've got a mobile phone, try and stay with the current phone you've got and look at going to a prepaid plan. Most of them these days have unlimited calls and really good internet that hangs off them. And don't look at the major ones like Telstra and Optus and Vodafone. Have a look at the smaller providers like Amasim and Aldi. They all do really good deals on phones now. You can get a $30 mobile phone plan through one of the providers that gives you 45 gig of internet. That's huge. You could run your house probably off that. So the other thing is, if you've got a garden, right, put a bucket in the shower, fill the bucket in the water with the shower, and take that water out and water your plants with it. Don't let it all go down into the sewers. And takeaway. There are times when you go, can I afford takeaway this week? No, I can't. I've got to save this money for the new tyres on the car. So you do takeaway once a month. And it's a treat. Gambling, it sneaks up on everybody. And particularly coming up at the current season with the Cup weekend, it is a huge problem weekend for some gamblers. But we're also seeing a balloon in people gambling on sports betting, and they'll gamble on the soccer in the UK and the cycling, the Giro d'Italia that it's just gone through.
Yeah.
That's all increasing.
Yeah.
And clothing. Talk to your friends. Do have an afternoon tea, and everybody brings their clothing over, and they do a clothing swap. It's new. It's a new jumper to you, but your jumper that you've put into the clothing swap, that you go, oh no, I hated that, is gold to somebody else.
Yeah.
Engage with your friends around that, and particularly with kids' clothes. If you've got kids, have an afternoon tea where the kids are out in the backyard and you're all swapping around their clothes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
The
I like
kids
that
won't
one.
notice it. They're thrown out of it.
Yeah. That's a good one. And I think it's a good point as well. The slide, it's called cutting costs. Put gambling up there, but obviously, It is a good reminder that the gambling is a way to spend money. It's a cost. It's not a way to make money. And the odds certainly aren't in our favour to win. So I think that was a good point to sort of just, it's certainly it's a way, as I said, to spend money. All right. So I guess I've just put something up here. I know we were talking, you and I, about some of these little costs and how they add up. And they're the sorts of things that we don't necessarily always think about. You might hand over a couple of dollars here or a couple of dollars there. And when you do that, when you hand over $2 or $3 here, $4 there, it doesn't necessarily feel like a lot at that particular time. And it's only when you sort of sit back and look at costs over a week, over a month, or over a year that you can start to see how much money actually goes on something. And I guess you'd probably see that all the time when you work with people and work with them on their budgets.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that people, and this is the most annoying job, trust me, I do it for myself about every 2 to 3 years. It's been 2 weeks, and every time you spend money, you write it down. And I've had clients that have gone, I'll use my phone, and they don't write everything down, or they don't put a containment on themselves. And then they look at it and they go, oh my God. I'm buying 3 coffees a day.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, and one on the weekends. That's 17 coffees a week. That is a lot of $4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of $4.
It is a lot of $4.
Often people, And look, I remember a lot of years ago, I had a client who couldn't work out where her money was going. And she lived near a shop, and she would trot backwards and forwards over the road to buy a bottle of Coke.
Yep.
And it was just that was her coffee. But she when she wrote it down, because she used to buy, 24 big bottles a week and go through that, she was spending more then than she was when she was at the supermarket.
Yep.
And everybody has got it.
Yep.
Everybody has got something that they spend money on that they don't realise that they're spending money on. And when things are tight, it's those little things that if you can haul those back in a little bit, you'll see a return.
Yeah.
And it's like if you spend $10 a week in the pokies, that is $520. But if you spend $10 this week and say you win 50, and next week you spend 60 and you lose the 60, but the week after that you go, I'll spend a bit more, or I reckon, and you go through the 100 the next week, it escalates and becomes all consuming because you're chasing the money you've lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that idea of writing down everything you spend your money on, because you're so right. It's there's a whole bunch of things that we wouldn't even kind of consciously have recognized that we're spending a lot of money on every week. So I guess the flip side of that, we talked about those.
And the thing is, I tell clients, it's expensive.
Yeah, so go ahead.
It really, the other side of that is, as I tell clients to write every little red cent. If you buy a Mars bar and a Coke, write it down.
Yeah.
And you might not buy that again for another 2 weeks. I had a client who was struggling to make ends meet and couldn't work out, and he liked to bet, and he kept a record of his bets, and I had a bad week this week, no, I had a good week that week, but I still don't have a lot of money to spend. And then what we actually worked out was when he went on his walk, and he went for 3 walks a day, and they were all 3 different routes, but they all took him past a cake shop. He couldn't walk past a cake shop. So every day he was buying 3 cakes.
Right.
And he was a large lad. But I said, I've worked it out. Pick one of the cake shops and then change the route for the others.
Yeah. Simple, really simple change.
But we would never have known that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. So I've just put
Well,
up,
we
I guess,
wouldn't
the
have
flip
known
side.
that
No,
had you not done that.
yeah. And I guess it can be kind of, when you're working through those budgets and looking at those costs, sort of a flip side is a bit of a motivation is almost to look at the savings. So if you're thinking about, okay, well, maybe I could cut the coffee back to the weekends, looking at, well, what can I save by doing that? And that might be a motivation for some people, I guess. So, all right. So I might.
And it might be, if I don't spend that $1,000 a year, I can put that away. Right?
Yeah.
I can put that away and I can have a weekend away. I can actually have a holiday.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing to do.
Nice to plan for. That's right. So I wanted to cover a little bit about gifting awareness. I know you touched on sort of, it's probably more important to think about, how we're giving our time or our, energy or with the people that we love. But it's also worth having a bit of a think about what it is, if you do give a gift, what it is that you're actually gifting. And I'll just show some examples here. So, some popular gifts are things like lottery tickets or scratchies, iTunes cards or video games, particularly if you've got, children or grandchildren. And I guess there's something to think about. Lottery tickets and scratchies. It is actually a form of gambling. It's obviously legal and many people enjoy it. But some people do it, and Pam, you would know this, some people do actually have issues with, I guess, addictions with lottery tickets, for example. And I guess, even at the moment when we've been stuck in our homes and we haven't been able to get out and we've been isolated and all these other issues that have gone on with COVID, I guess for some people that might have been a bit of a go-to, an escape. So that's just, I guess it's just worth flagging that can cause issues for some people. iTunes cards as well, people can use those online for lots of different purchases. We do know there's been a rise in online gambling in recent months for all the same reasons I've just spoken about. So something to think about. And also with video games. A lot of video games now have these in-game purchases, which is in effect a form of gambling where you make a purchase to buy things like loot boxes with the chance of receiving something of value in return. But you don't know what you may receive and it may not really be of any value. But it's certainly, for young kids particularly, it's a way that they may be starting to be introduced to this concept of gambling. So I just flag those as 3 things to think about. And then there's obviously lots of other examples, but it's worth having to think about what it is that you're actually gifting someone. So, and as I said, Pam did touch on this, but there are lots of alternatives in terms of when we're gifting and to save us money, whether it's, skills teaching. So there's some examples there of, it's, giving somebody a gardening lesson or teaching someone to cook or to bake a cake. If it's babysitting, so somebody can head out, that's probably a great one at the moment. Just myself having young kids and we've all been home for so long. We all need a little bit of time away from the kids, so that'll be a great gift. And creating special memories, planning days out. Again, we all need things to look forward to, I think, now more than ever. And being creative, if it's baking, sewing, making gifts, there's lots of different ways and lots of ways that we can show people our affection and gift them something. It just doesn't always have to come in the way of spending a lot of money. So I might come back to you, Pam, just on this question of, we've talked a lot about, Christmas is an expensive time of year, but for a lot of people, we put things on the credit card bills, and it's actually not till the bill arrives in January that it really kind of hits us of how much we've spent. So January is, I think, is actually the difficult time in many ways for a lot of families or a lot of people. And that's obviously when there's also, bills that are due. You might have children heading back to school. So do you see that as well? Do you sort of find that post-Christmas debt can be a troubling time for people?
We tend to see people arrive, the credit card they'll have splurged on the credit card and they'll arrive, the credit card will arrive and they've maxed it. And it doesn't matter whether it's you're a high end of town and you've got a $30,000 credit card, or you've got a $500 credit card and you're on New Start or Job Seeker. It's the actual debt is relevant. It means that you've got something that is causing stress.
Mm.
And the other thing is, stress and debt is a huge problem because it actually eats away and creates a situation where people feel they can't get out of it. They feel that it's not gonna change. They're worried that people are going to come and knock on their door because I've gone $10 over on the credit card. Some people go, oh yeah, it's $10 over, that's fine.
Mm.
But for the majority of people, they'll go, oh my God, I've gone over on the credit card. And it creates stress. Stress impacts on your physical health, and your mental health. And it also impacts on your relationships. My great-great-grandmother had a saying, when debt walks through the door, love flies out the window. It's a really stressful thing to have in a relationship and often creates more family violence than anything else. But it's not something that we tend to see because it's all around the arguments about who's going to service the debt. So what we're hoping to do is get people not to have a debt hangover.
Yeah.
If they've got debt, right at the very start, look at it and think, oh, okay, I think I need to see a financial counsellor. Or have a conversation with someone about how I get this under control.
Yeah, and that's probably my my next question is
managing what you've got.
Yep. So I've just put up a slide. So what are some of the specific things that people should might be able to access or could be thinking about to either help to sort of reduce those bills or to support them if they are having some issues?
So we're very lucky in Victoria. We've got concessions on our electricity, gas and water usage. If you own your own home or buying it and got a pension card, you can get a rebate on your council rates. It's not huge, and most rates where everybody's looking at paying around $90 a fortnight for their rates now. But if you can get a little rebate, little fish are sweet. But have a look at your healthcare card or your pension card.
Yeah.
Contact your provider for your water bill or your electricity bill, your gas bill. If you're with Telstra, Telstra will give you a rebate on your phone. Ask them. It's a little bit like window shopping. Looking costs nothing. Ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you're not going to get the answer.
And I guess people can check their bills.
You go on to the next thing.
Yeah, and so can people can just have a look at their bills to see if a concession's been applied, or call their provider to double check, I guess, if they need to.
Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Yeah. Have a look at your bill, and look, a lot of bills are unintelligible these days because they're all over the shop. But you should be able to simply see that the concession has been applied.
Yep. Good tip. Always worth double checking. I know I've heard people say before that they thought their concession was being applied and they assumed it was for whatever reason, and it was only when they looked at it they realized it wasn't. So I think it's always worth just double checking and making sure that is being applied to your bills, because it can add up to quite a bit of money when you consider your water, your gas and your electricity bills. Okay, what else? So I put up payment arrangements or bill smoothing. I know it's got a lot of different names. Paying by instalment. How does that work?
So what happens if you think about it, you use more gas in winter heating the house than you do in summer. What happens with bill smoothing is they take the whole 12 months usage and divide it by either 26 which is 26 fortnights, or 52 if you want to pay it weekly, or by 12 if you want to pay it monthly. depending on what fits with your cycle is what you look for. Everybody's cycle is different.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a self-funded retiree that their income comes in on the 1st of the month, you want to be able to, on the 2nd of the month, make your monthly payments, your electricity, your gas and the water. If you're on Centrelink benefit, you really want to have those payments done every fortnight so that there's no bill shock, because there's nothing worse than suddenly discovering that there's been a leak and you've got in your water and you've got a bill of $800 just for water usage. And that's when you're looking to have a conversation with plumbers and things, which you're back to your rainy day fund. Your rainy day fund will come and help with that.
Yeah. And you can set up to have bills paid out of your Centrelink payments, is that right, as well? Directly from a benefit?
Yes, yeah. It's called CenterPay.
Yep.
And you can either set that up for yourself through Centrelink, or your provider can set it up with Centrelink.
Okay.
So you go on, and it can all be done by phone. So you ring up, you say, I'd like to set go into bill smoothing. They will work out how much it needs to be. And if you're in a little bit of arrears, don't worry about that. They'll include that in the bill smoothing moving forward.
Yep.
If you're in a lot in arrears, they'll look at paying that amount off over 2 years, but normally it's about 12 months.
Okay. So a few different
There's
options.
also a thing called a utility relief grant. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, talk us through that. There you go.
So utility relief grants are funded by the state government, and they help with mains electricity, gas or water bill. And it's to help if you've had a temporary crisis. There's not a person on this conversation that at some point would not have had a temporary crisis. I've had them, Lucy's had them, certain Marnie's had them. But it's good to know that if you can't afford the bill or you need to stop your CenterPay payments just for a little bit, you can then come back and pick it up through a utility relief grant. So you get a maximum of $650 over a 2-year period for water, the same for gas and the same for electricity. There is also a grant for people who are in caravan parks for bottle gas.
Okay.
Which is fairly unusual. Victoria's the only state with that.
And so I just put up who can actually apply for the utility relief grant?
So anybody on a concession card holder and anybody whose income, if they spend more than 30% of their income on the cost of their housing. So 30% is a very old-fashioned amount, and it used to be the amount that banks used for the cost of providing a mortgage. I don't know why, but that's what it was.
Okay. So if someone's interested, they can just contact.
Yep. Contact their utility provider.
Yep.
Now the utility provider must now put the application in for you. They can't fob you off. They have to make the application. And that application is then reviewed by the Department of Health and Human Services concessions unit. And they make the decision, not the utility provider. Okay. And whilst they're waiting on the decision to get the grant, you can then start paying a little bit that's affordable to bring the debt down.
Great.
They can't cut you off while they're waiting on utility to come through.
Yeah. So I might just ask you, when I introduced you at the start, I mentioned that you're a financial counsellor with our team, but we didn't actually talk about what that means and what it is that a financial counsellor does. So Do you want to just talk us through what financial counsellors do, in case anybody does want to access a financial counsellor?
So when you first come and see me, I'll ask you, about you and a little bit about your family. And I'm not being a sticky beak. Well, yes, I am being a sticky beak. But it's to give me a picture of what's going on in your life. It's so I can get a bit of an understanding of where the stresses are that are outside of money. So then we'll sit down and we'll try and work out where your money goes. Now, it might be that I say to you, I want you to keep a record of your spending, and we're back to the other conversation and I want you to write down every time you spend money. So we'll go, then we'll come back and we'll get a better picture of where your money goes, because you'll understand more about where your money goes. If you've got debts, we can help by negotiating with your credit providers affordable repayments based on your situation. Right? We can talk to you and explain to you your rights, what the credit provider can and can't do. Can they call you 15 times a day and demand money out of you? No, they can't. They cannot harass you. There's laws in place that are set out in the National Consumer Credit Code and enforced by both ASIC and the ACCC about what they can do. They can speak to you 10 times a month, right? But if you see the call come in and you don't answer the call and they don't speak to you, if you say, no, I'm not answering that call, that doesn't count as a contact. It's a conversation with them that counts as the contact. Each time you talk to a credit provider, just say, ask the person who's on the phone their name. And ask them if they've got an operator number. Ask them and keep a record of the conversation. And this is really, really, really important for Centrelink as well. If you think that you've got a Centrelink debt or a Centrelink of, particularly following the recent robo-debt stuff, if Centrelink are calling you about a debt or you have any interaction with Centrelink, ask them for a receipt number for the conversation. Very important when you're talking to Centrelink that you get a receipt number. You won't get a receipt number out of a credit provider, but you've got the name, you've got the date, and you've got the time of the conversation.
Okay.
And
so
that's
just keeping
enough
all the
to
details.
protect you.
And I should ask, so obviously at the moment, financial counsellors, yourself and others, you're still seeing clients, but you're just obviously seeing them through phone and video counselling. Is that right?
Yeah. We're all working. We've got a couple of clients that we're seeing face-to-face. I'm not seeing anybody face-to-face, but we've got a couple of workers who are prepared to come in and see people face-to-face, but it's got to be extenuating circumstances. We've got one girl coming in and she's going to do help somebody with an interpreter to complete some documentation. That'll be a one-off.
So the service that is still there, it continues, or just it's delivered in a different way at the moment?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
So I guess I've just put up some other numbers here in terms of other support services. If people did want to speak to anyone, I guess depending on what you need. So I guess it's contact your utility provider, contact your bank, or the National Debt Helpline. Some good places to start.
So the Financial Information Service, they're called the FIS or FISO offices at Centrelink. They're brilliant. If you've got if you think you might be entitled to something, it might even be that you're just entitled to a healthcare card because you're a self-funded retiree. But they'll help you work out what you're entitled to. They are seriously good. And they don't report the conversations out. So it is a discrete thing.
Okay.
If you've got a debt or you've got a problem with a bank, call them. Ask to speak to the hardship team. Explain your situation. Tell them what you can afford to pay.
Mm.
If they say no, call a financial counsellor.
Yep.
It's the banks at the moment, they're struggling because they're inundated, but there's a whole pile of things they can and can't do. They can put interest on hold for a period of time. They can stop your repayments for a period of time. They can look at waiving the debt if it looks like you would not be able to pay this debt off in a set amount of time. And that it's different policies for different banks. Mostly it's between 5 to 7 years. They're looking at if there's no interest, there's no fees, no charges, is it viable for this client to pay this debt off in 5 or 7 years? Some clients it's no, some clients it's yes.
Okay. I guess my last question for you, where today's session is obviously hosted from Frankston Library, which is fantastic. So if people were wanting to do more research, if they wanted to read some books or magazines or websites, on personal finances or budgeting and things we've talked about, is there any resources in particular that you'd recommend people have a look at?
If you've got some investments, or I don't mind Scott Pape's book, The Barefoot Investor. He does some good, there's a couple of good chapters in there about budgeting.
Okay.
And about making sure what you're going to do if you're looking at investing is affordable, that you're not putting yourself at risk of losing everything. You can have a look at, there's some websites. The Financial Counselling Australia have some good information on their website. And if you've got something, if you think you can do the advocacy, but you need support with the letter for it, say you've got a debt to Signo or the really crazy ones, the payday lenders and things like that, and you want to do the advocacy yourself, Consumer Action Law Centre have some sample letters that you can actually use. All right. Now, you've asked there about specific service financial counsellors. I obviously work with people who are impacted by gambling-related harms. Now, gambling can be anything from scratchies to the stock market. And I see a number of clients who lose a lot of money on the stock market. So, and again, it comes down to where you fit. If you're on New Start and you're taking 25 scratchies a week, that's $50 a fortnight, and out of $546, it's not affordable. Right? So you need to have some assistance in dealing with that. If your income is $500,000 a year and you lose $1.5 million on the stock market, that's exactly the same deal as the person on New Start.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger number.
Just a few more zeros. I've just put up.
What's a zero amongst friends?
Yeah, exactly. I've just put up a slide here just with information about the Gamblers Help Services. Just to recap what we do. So we provide free and confidential financial and therapeutic counselling services. And it is available to anyone experiencing gambling-related harm. So Pam makes this point as well. She will see clients who, the client that she's working with might be affected by their partners, their husbands, their child's gambling. So we don't just see the person who's gambling, we see affected others, affected loved ones. We provide one-to-one couple financial, family and group counselling. There's no waiting list and no cap. So we have some clients who've seen, come in for a couple of sessions, some who will work with our counsellors over a couple of years. We work with translators. I've included the Gamblers Help Southern website, gamblershelpsouthern.org.au, and the phone number. 9575 5353. So that information's there if anybody did want to reach out. And as I said, it's for anyone who's affected in any way from gambling, not just necessarily somebody who may be gambling themselves. So that's all the information, all the, I guess, the questions that I had for you, Pam. So I might just ask now if there were any questions from the group, anything in the chat function.
At the moment, Iris was just saying that she really loves your idea on creating memories. So she'll actually be using that one this year. And I popped up that I was drawing a picture of my cousin's daughter for him for Christmas. So that's what I've chosen to do. And Laura also said that sounds like her, but I think that was about the actual Christmas shopping for people.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's great.
If anyone does have any more questions, please feel free to pop them in.
Laura, fess up, was that not being able to walk past a cake shop?
I think it might have been before that, but I'd also give that one. Knowing Laura, I'd also give her that one. She just said yes.
Okay.
I will also point out, obviously with the library, our resources are free. So, for example, we do have Scott Pape's book. It's available on our e-library, but also you can reserve it at the moment for click and collect at any of our libraries. We've also got books by Canna Campbell, Melissa Brown, just depending on whether you work really well with a tight budget, understanding your spending type, or whether you just need something that's going to get you from A to B. And I'm a big fan of Scott Pape. So very much about the buckets and just understanding where your money's going and giving yourself a budget to be able to do things like go out for dinner and things like that without feeling like you've only got $24 and that's what's budgeted for dinner. You've got a small bucket that you can actually spend out of. So, and it might be $24, but it's up to you what you do with that $24. So, but that's on our digital library. If anyone does need help accessing the digital library, you can just give our library staff a call and they'll help you.
Okay.
I grew up with a grandmother who lived through the Depression, and she raised me, and she had envelopes. And every week, the things went into the envelope. So then every school holiday, we went into town and met her sister and had lunch in town one day. So it's these little things that, because she'd put the money away, that she could do.
Yeah.
And can I tell you, Pam, I have actually got a bank account that is called Route 66 2032. And every fortnight, $24 goes into that account. That's why I'm thinking the $24, because I know with compound interest, that's gonna give me a holiday in 2032, and that's the year my daughter turns 18 in that November. And for Christmas, we're going to drive from Chicago to Los Angeles.
Yes.
So she's turning 6 in 2 weeks.
I think that's spectacular.
It was just, that's what I want to do, and I'm not going to miss that $24 each pay, because I would have spent it on something. Without thinking about it, whether it's the coffees or a sandwich or whatever, but that gets put away, and that's what that account's labelled.
I'm going to steal that idea. I love that one.
It's about putting things. It's about putting things away that you don't see. That's not gnawing away at you. My grandmother. That was the money she put away, and it went up the back of the cupboard. She didn't see it every day. And that's, Coles Calf, and I'm talking ancient history here, so a lot of people won't even remember what I'm talking about with Coles Calf. But it was the meeting up with her sister that was a great time. And that's that was my thing that I looked forward to every school holidays. And we only had 3 school holidays in that era. I'm old.
Okay, I know all about Coles Calf. That's fine.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions? Have I made sense? Have I bored you all to snores?
I think you've been very thorough. So Iris has just said, thank you again, everyone. Very resourceful and helpful. Again, Frankston Library, well done. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about it.
And this will be available afterwards on our social media in the coming days. So if you know of anyone that would have benefited from it or was unable to attend, feel free to share it with them. So it'll be on our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you'll be able to tag people and share it.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it.
Cool.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Lucy and Pam.
Okay, thanks for having me.
We've really appreciated it, and thank you to Gamblers Health Southern. Thank you so much. Gamblers Help Southern, I should say. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who came along today. We really, really appreciate it. Have a look at all the Frank Talks we've got coming up.